the Indian perspectives on Indian issues towards something which has actually been of more importance to us of recent times, that is China, and how China has emerged into the global scene and what does it imply for the world and us. That is what I'm going to talk to you about in the next 30 to 35 minutes, and then I'll give you about 10 minutes to ask some questions which I can take at that point. See, when we talk of global order, what do you mean by global order? It is simply the arrangement of power and authority between the countries. If you take this as a formula and then apply it to the Chinese model, when Chinese talk about Confucianism, it simply means the same. It is the hierarchy which actually governs. So that is the similarity that you will get from the Western definition of global order and the Chinese one of Confucianism. The world has transitioned. Before Second World War, you found it was plural, multipolar. Slowly after the Second World War, it became a bipolar with US and the USSR, and then with the USSR breaking away, you found it became a unipolar again. From there, we are moving towards a plural kind of a situation, which will further go towards bipolar and then further move on to a single pole. This is the transition of the world in terms of multipolarity and unipolarity. Okay? China's ambition is simple. They want to become that single pole in the future. Make no mistake about it. They talk about multipolarity. They talk about world being one, like we have Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. They have something else which I explain to you later. But the underlying aim is to become a unipole in the world. Make no mistake about it. From bipolar, when it came to the plural world order, what happened? What made that change? The seminal changes took place in the disruptive events. The first disruptive event is the rise of China, and who was instrumental in doing that? It was the US that was instrumental in doing it. When Nixon reopened the relationship with China and then later on facilitated the Chinese to be part of the WTO, it is the willingness of the US to share even technology and other things with China that brought it up to the level that you see it today. That is the first incident. The second one was the disintegration of the USSR, which allowed the multipolarity to become from bipolarity to become a unipolar world. So this is the two seminal events. Now what is happening? There is a sense that the West is weakening and the East is rising, and therefore you get a discussion on the relative weakness of the United States of America. I'll talk about it later. Europe, ASEAN and Russia I'll cover later, and so I'll not cover now because to save time. The point which I want to mention is that we are in an era today where the multilateral institutions are weakening. Like for example, you take UN, you take the Bretton Woods financial systems like IMF and World Bank, they all tend to weaken, and therefore you find that there is a move towards from a multilateral kind of a organization to a minilateral and a plurilateral kind of organization. When I say minilateral, it is about 3 countries. It is about plurilateral, goes beyond 3 countries. You can take RIC, you can take Quad, you can take Squad, you can take anything. It is becoming from multipolar, it is becoming minilaterals and plurilateral. So this is the way the world is moving from multipolarism to a smaller group of countries coming together on a common minimum program which all of them agree upon. I can trace this foreign relations of China to Mao Zedong and beyond, but for sake of saving time, I will only cover those in one line and cover a little bit of this. Mao Zedong started the foreign policy of China in 3 levels: party to party, people to people, state to state. It is 3 levels in which he dealt with his foreign policy. You can see that trend even today. The Communist Party of China will deal with Communist Party of India, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, wherever communist parties are. State-to-state relations are actually a given, and people-to-people relations is what China is insisting on. So that trend still continues today. Xi Jinping came. He talked about a foreign policy consisting of three worlds. The first world, China and the US and the USSR. The second world, the middle order countries like say Canada, UK and other European countries. And the third world is the kind of countries which are developing. So it is three world theory of Deng Xiaoping. Jiang Zemin came, he started re-establishing the relationship with Russia. And that is when you find the Russians transferred a lot of arms and equipment to China. You find 12 kilo class submarines coming up, 4 Soormani class destroyers coming up, Sukhoi 27, Sukhoi 30, name a thing, it was all coming from Russia at that time. Come Hu Jintao, he actually propagated the friendly neighborhood policy. We have a neighborhood first policy, China has got a friendly neighborhood policy, and he propagated that. And in addition, he also started hardlining the Chinese outlook towards the world. And then came Mr. Xi Jinping. He talked about a new type of major power relationship, which implies China and USA should avoid conflict, they should cooperate with each other, and they should develop a win-win relationship. Whenever Chinese say win-win relationship, be rest assured, it is win-win for China. Make no mistake. Okay? So this is something that you need to understand, and this is where they said we should not let differences become disputes. They proposed this. Mr. Xi Jinping pitched this to Barack Obama when they met for the first time, but the Americans did not bite it. So it stayed there. But they talk about this new type of major power relationship even today. One Belt, One Road, we all know about it, we all have read about it. Global initiatives, I'll talk about it a little later, but please understand that global initiatives are not to be considered each one of them individually. There is an underlying theme which I'll explain to you. And the increased influence in UN is something that we all need to be conscious of. Out of 15 organizations, in 9 of them, they have controlling senior positions. So through that, they try to increase their influence. So please understand this. Global initiatives. China started giving out global initiatives one after the other. I have put 2 of them in green, rest of them in the normal yellow and white. Please understand, September 2020, the Global Initiative on Data Security came up. You should be concerned about it when you're talking about AI. The second thing came up as a response to the Clean Network Initiative of US, which came up in August 2020. September 2021, they brought out a Global Development Initiative. April 22, they brought out Global Security Initiative. March 23, Global Civilization Initiative. So initiatives came one after the other. Please don't miss out the proposal for reform and development of global governance. Okay? Global Community of Shared Future. And then came Global AI Governance Initiative. In between this, they have also created an international mediation organization in Hong Kong. So, what is the underlying theme of all this? Please look at this slide. They started with that One Belt, One Road initiative. When they brought out the Global Development Initiative, the OBOR was subsumed into that. When they brought out Global Security Initiative, both of them got subsumed into Global Security Initiative. All of them feed into something known as the Community of Shared Future. And if you start questioning which community, whose future, you will get different answers. Okay? In between, the proposal for reform and development of global governance came up. And I have put the other 2 on the other side. That is the Global Artificial Intelligence Governance Initiative and the Global Initiative on Data Security. That is because that is technology oriented. But all of them feed into one concept, that is Community of Shared Future. This is something we need to understand, because most of the analysts, when they write about these issues, they look at these initiatives individually. Each one of them feeds into the other. This is something that we need to be aware of and we need to be conscious of. All of them are prescriptive in nature. If you read any of them, all of them, and make your notes, you will understand that China is prescribing to the world. Countries should do this. Organizations should do this. ICT companies should do this. So it is a prescriptive form of initiatives that they have been proposing, which puts them at a higher pedestal. So ultimately, when I talked about China wanting to become a unipole, this is what it means. So please keep this in mind. US-led initiatives, of course, if China does initiatives, obviously we have to do something. We have to do something about it. So you find these initiatives came up: Blue Dot Network, Five Eyes, Build Act, Build Back Better World, Indo-Pacific Economic Forum. All these things have come up. But most of them, other than the Five Eyes, have not been very effective. Basically because the government funding was limited. They wanted the private sector to pitch in a lot more, which hasn't happened. So therefore they all have been weak, except for IPEF. IPEF has gathered momentum. Many of the countries have come together. They've got pillars. In fact, during this present visit of PM, we are going to join one more pillar of that IPEF. So this is gaining momentum. But you need to put money where the requirement is. If you don't put, say for example, China has invested $1.1 trillion in the One Belt One Road initiative. If you don't put up at least $400 to $500 billion to match it, I don't think these initiatives are going to be effective. That is where I think they need to come together and think about how to go about doing this and how to go about meeting that requirement. In between, Quad and Indo-Pacific have come up. On Quad and Indo-Pacific, I will just make two lines of comments. Quad is not a security initiative. I have written about it. You can go onto the net to check. Please understand, Quad came together basically because of the humanitarian assistance and disaster relief that these four countries did during tsunami in 2004. It is a result of that. And they are supposed to do regional development and other activities. They have now taken on technology, the critical and emerging technologies and others. But security wise, they are having only three aspects. One is cyber security, second is maritime security, and third one I think they are going to add now is environment security. So these are the security related issues that they are covering in Quad. Indo-Pacific is a principle which came up much later in 2017. It is gathering momentum. Both of these upset China very badly. The moment you say Quad, the moment you say Indo-Pacific, they literally jump. So this is actually upsetting them. China, USA, I'm not going to talk much about it, just go through it. Only one thing I would like to mention on the last point, that is the efforts at rapprochement by the USA. The reason is, when Trump came, the relationship went down. When Biden came, he followed most of Mr. Trump's policies. But then of late, there has been an effort by the US to reach out to the Chinese to get the relationship to some kind of base level. They call it the base level. Okay? You find the number of visits by the Secretary of State, the Treasury Secretary, the trade representative, all of them have been making a number of visits to China. There has been an effort at rapprochement in the relationship between US and China from the US side. What is the strength of USA? Before I talk about the weaknesses of USA, please look at it. Whenever the US went into any kind of trouble, it has displayed a capability and a capacity to reinvent itself. You look at the 1929 financial crisis, you look at any other crisis that has happened, it has always reinvented itself and come out of the crisis. So that is this thing. Technological leadership, it is still there, but China is nicking it a little bit. So they have to literally shore up that technological leadership capability. Economic and military might, talent acquisition, they say US is a country of immigrants. Mainly many of them went to US and then most of them worked towards the development of USA. Global presence, please look at the map on the right. You will find today the US has got 750 bases all over the world. And that is how he becomes a global policeman. If something happens anywhere in the world, they are able to react from the nearest base within 6 to 12 hours. So this is something that gives them the capability to be the global policeman. I'll come and compare it with the Chinese later. The influence in the UN I have said, the Bretton Woods institutions I have said, because they all are funded mostly by the US and the West, and so they react to them better.